It's not so much the asking for help, I think. It's the possibility of the rejection or, the saying no and whatever that word no means to you. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the WTF series on the Clarity Through Chaos YouTube channel. I'm your host, Fiona. If you're new here, this channel is all about helping you transform your relationship with yourself. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications. We'd love to connect with you. We'll see you at the end of the video.
I think a lot of men, I've noticed, have a really hard time asking for help. And so when they do, sometimes I'm like, what? You need me? Oh, okay. Like, I feel like, I'm like ready to jump, especially for like the guys in my life,
Yeah.
I think it's that vulnerability that you were talking about. It's like, it's uncommon for me to see that. And so then I respond to it better because I'm like, oh, well, if you need me.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wonder too, because I tend to be a little more in my masculine energy versus in my feminine energy. And so it's interesting. And I had a friend one time we were talking and she was dating somebody they'd been dating for years and on the more serious side. And she had a daughter and she made mention about, she was like, well, I kind of wanted to do this, but I kind of dropped a hint, but then he didn't say anything. And I was like, well, did you just ask him? Guys are kind of simple. They need very clear, direct questions. They don't pick up on the little in-betweens. Usually, the men that I've experienced need clear direction. And she was like, well, no, why would I do that? I was like, well, why wouldn't you? And she was like, well, then what if he says no? I'm like, oh, okay. So it was for her as well, getting vulnerable. Because if he said no, then it means X, Y, Z, whatever it means to you. It's not so much the asking for help, I think. It's the possibility of the rejection or, the saying no and whatever that word no means to you, right? Because now we're just talking about our core wound. And what is it that no represents in your life?
I think that makes a lot of sense, actually. I don't like the word no at all.
Tell us why.
I don't like it at all. Don't say no to me. It's something that I'm really working through because being in a serious relationship is new for me, really, because I dated somebody I not for many years and it was but it was not like this where me and George are I'm realizing certain dynamics I just don't like. I don't like being told no. And then I'm realizing that sometimes I feel like it depends on who is giving you that response, right? When you ask for help, right?
Mm-hmm.
From some people, it's okay, whatever, it doesn't affect you that much. But from other people, I feel like you may expect more from other people, and then when they don't deliver and you had that moment of vulnerability or asking for help, it hurts more. Fiona, and it's funny, the asking for help thing, I don't understand why people get married if it's not for the benefit of the person. I know that sounds really messed up. I don't know how to change it. I just really am just I'm what's the point of this if you're not gonna do what I said? What is I need to stop asking people to do my. That's what I need to do. But it's not even that. It's little stuff. But I'm what's the point of marriage if you're not adding to my life? That is, and I think that this is where I'm realizing adding to somebody's life and allowing them to show up for you and allowing them to be there for you can look different in so many ways and in so many different moments. And I had to really be honest with George about the things that hurt me. It wasn't so much asking for help, but it's really being honest, something that he would never think would be even hurtful. I was I need you to help me when I'm going through these moments because it triggers something in me that I am not even sure what it is. I've learned to ask more for help for him to let me be vulnerable. Not that I feel afraid to be vulnerable. I need him to let me be a mess. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's where I'm that's where I've had to practice that, which I never had to do before because the only person that really saw me super vulnerable is my best friend. It's just different.
Yeah, it's almost like having that safe space. And John and I, when we first got married, we were down in Mexico and there's this great intuitive healer down there. And one of my friends was like, you need to have a session with him while you're down there. And we were like, okay. So we drove down to Tulum and we had a session and it was pretty much like a couples counseling session on our honeymoon.
Right.
So he really loves me because he was like, what the hell are we doing here? He's like, I thought we were happy.
I know. They always think that, but I don't know.
But our biggest takeaway from that session that we literally still, I just said it to John this morning, is allowing your partner to suffer. Okay? Not trying to fix all the problems and solve all the issues because sometimes you don't really need an issue solved. Sometimes you just need to say it out loud. And sometimes you just need to vent without the other person butting in and being like, I can fix this. I can fix that. I can fix this. Because it causes, what Bobby had said. His name is Bobby Klein and he reads the I Ching every week. He's really great. We still listen to the I Ching every Sunday. He was like, the challenge is if your partner is like Fiona comes home from work and she's annoyed, so she's just going on and on. And then you make a suggestion that's unsolicited, right? She didn't ask you to make a suggestion. Number one, if your suggestion is correct, she's going to be pissed and resent you because, like, well, why didn't she think of that? And if it's incorrect, she's going to rub it in your face that it was incorrect. It was like, so sometimes you just quietly listen, a hand on the shoulder. Okay, let it out. Let out the crazy. Sit with her for a minute and then it'll naturally pass. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. He's like, now I'm not saying that if your partner says, hey, what do you think about this, to ignore it. Right? But sometimes, like, you're not actually looking for that.
I agree with you. It happened yesterday. Like George was talk about asking for help. Let me tell you this. So I'm trying to fit into this bridesmaid dress that I have to be
Oh,
in
yeah, you told
basically.
me about
We
that.
can't release this episode till after because my cousin will kill me. So I asked for George's help to zip me up
Yeah.
because I couldn't do it on my own the day before. I like couldn't, my short little pterodactyl arms couldn't get it. And I was like, okay. And he
Did you
can't
do
zip
the
me up.
trick that I told you?
I tried it and he was like, what's happening?
No, you're not supposed
I,
to move. It's like a deep inhale breath, and then you take your hands and you like squeeze towards your back, like the fabric of the dress, and you squeeze it
I
back.
pinched it. So just squeeze all the fabric in the
The
back.
whole thing. So you're gonna like grab your waist and like pull it back.
Maybe
Like
I'll
if
try
this
this.
is your waist, you're going like this.
Well, only Jesus could have helped us yesterday. So I literally was like, only Jesus. It didn't zip, Fiona. I mean, the poor guy was sweating. I was just like, okay, he is getting a little late. So it's fine. Not a big deal. But I was like, what am I gonna do? So I have a nervous breakdown because it's very, turn a molehill into a mountain kind of tourist reaction. I'm calling David's bridal. I'm like, can I get a size 14 and I will measure it? Like they had, like it was just so huge when I went there that I was like, okay, well, I'll just get the 12. It's fine. Whatever. Speaking of, he just was not saying like the right thing. Like he was like, hey, like I know maybe you don't want to hear this, but maybe like, you gotta do like the yoga and the Pilates. I'm like, no. No, I'm
That's
like,
exactly
actually,
what I don't want to hear. Thank
and
you.
he's like, it's a really good workout. I know you're boxing. He's like trying to be like supportive and like whatever. And I looked at him, I'm like, you know nothing about women's weight loss, so I need to stop. Like I turned into straight like, you're wrong. You're wrong. We can't talk about this right now. Like, I don't care. Like, it's just, I'm having too many snacks.
I mean,
And
I'm telling you, Tia, my husband has been a personal trainer for his entire adult life. And I will be like, no, nothing. He's like, I beg to disagree.
like, George's like, and George's always been an athlete. Like, he's chubbier now, but like, he's always worked out. Always. I'm like, stop it. Stop talking. No. I'm not even here. He's like, okay. And he like stops, because he's just like, I'm gonna
Right.
freak out. But
Right.
that
So
is
that would have been
something
a
that
perfect opportunity for him to just allow you to suffer.
yeah, just allow me to suffer. Just allow me to have and he's actually really good at it usually. So
Mm.
it's funny, like later on that night, because I'm just like full of temper tantrums during Aries season. I mean, my Aries rising and my Aries, like my first house is really on fire. Like I literally I'm just like, and I don't want this, and what if we get married? And I don't want that, and da-da-da. And he's like, okay, baby, I love you. Have a great day. And he's just like, all I needed to do was like share that, like share for a second how I was feeling. And I was like, okay, I'm good now. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on. It was just and I noticed that thing that I just needed to express. I don't know. I think I rely and I put a lot onto George. He actually told me yesterday, he's like, you blame me for everything. I'm like, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He's like, you blame me because you gained weight. You blame me because of this. I'm like, yeah. No, it's like it didn't happen before you, but when I was single, I didn't have these eating problems. It's not his fault, right? And we both logically know, but we can laugh about it. But I'm like, he's like, well, baby, I'll support you. Like, we'll eat really clean, and like, I won't tempt you. And like, he's like, I don't even sometimes have to ask George for help because I think he tries to like step up. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's fine. Good, good, good. I'm just letting you know I'm not going to be eating after 8. I'm eating a strict diet. I have it planned out. I already put it in my thing. George is very feminine energy, I think, sometimes. Like you talked about you having like that masculine energy.
Mm,
Like I feel like George sometimes is sometimes feminine. Like we both switch. So he never fully asks for help until like he's pushed into a corner with me where
mm,
he's like, why don't you plan a vacation for once? Like that's him asking me to do something for us, but it gets to a point when we're like both like kind of annoyed. It's not like he
yeah.
can come out. He has a hard time.
Mm,
He has a hard time delegating, because he feels like he can be so self-sufficient, but that inner part of him, that feminine, sensitive, somebody who's like really just kind of like wanting to receive but doesn't know how to ask.
mm.
I see that more in George, and sometimes I'm just like, wow, I haven't done anything for him. And he'll tell me, he's like, well, what have you done for me? And I'm like, what do you mean? What have I done for you? And I'm like,
My presence.
I literally said that. And he was just like, what? I was like, what? You're dating a wonderful young woman. What are you talking about? Like in my head, I like have such dissonance. I don't even know what it is. I don't know if it's ego. I don't know if it's because I just think I'm God's gift to earth. I have no idea. I literally think it's like psychosis. I'm like, how can I not recognize that maybe he feels that way too? And I think that's what's been hardest for me in my relationship is like, isn't the guy supposed to do everything? Like that
Mm,
asking for help element, like it's hard because the conditioning I grew up with is like, well, a guy should take care of that for you. This should be taken care of for you. This should, and like not just
oh,
my
wow.
parents never said that. It's what I saw in my culture. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
That on the up hand of that is like, then they have the control, right?
Mm, hmm.
So it's like, how do you balance that feminine and that masculine? I think that asking for help has a lot to do with that. Like,
Yeah.
how can you be vulnerable enough to receive and then ask to receive is like another layer of that.
That's so true. John is really much more balanced in his masculine and feminine. He's helping me get there because, like, sometimes he does it in a way that I'm like, oh my God. Because he'll just be like, I'm sorry, were you asking for help? Because I didn't hear you ask me for help. And I'm just like, do I need to really spell it out? And he's like, it'd be nice. Like he just does it to get me to practice, you know what I mean? Because it's like even the words, like saying the words sometimes is really challenging. I notice that even when I do ask, like for instance, back to my story about this morning about, asking him to clean up the desk and the whatever. In the past, I would have felt guilty if I saw him cleaning up and me not cleaning up, me not also
Mhm.
doing something and just asking him to do it and just laid on the couch with my son and we were just like hanging out while John was like tidying up whatever spaces I asked him to. And in the past, I would have been like, I would have felt super guilty or like I'm not worthy to just sit on the couch for 10 minutes.
I'm so the opposite of you. Help me, God. I don't. I hear you talking. I'm like, am I an asshole? I
Well,
really
it's
gotta
just
talk.
well, it's just our conditioning, right? Because that was my conditioning growing up. It was like, and I'm a generator. It
Okay.
might also be a generator thing. Like, you're kind of in your brain, you're like, well, I have all the energy to do all the things. And that was like how I received love was like, okay, if I, do the dishes or do the laundry, do whatever, like I'll get praise. Right? My parents would be like, oh, thank you. It was an act of service, a way to receive love. So that's just
Mm.
carried on.
You're making me have an aha because I think that mine was the exact opposite. Like my parents never made us do anything. They were very Scorpio energy, I think, where they were very like, we're just gonna do it. Like they would ask us, like, hey, can you like the basic things, obviously, clean your room? Well, like
Yeah.
I never went above and beyond. I only went above and beyond in my schooling. Like I knew what they expected from us. I delivered that. Like what I could control and do and what I was good at, which was I was good at school. Okay, boom. I excelled
Mm,
in the areas that I could, but like stuff for like things that like were extra or like physical or like even like chores, like it wasn't like normal in our like especially culturally, like it's awful. Like my mom did so much and my dad did too. Like both of them actually really did practice masculine femininity. My mom was more of like I feel like the masculine energy, go go go, work work work, like business. My dad was more like the gardener. He had a good job, but like he was more in flow of like enjoying life and hobbies. And my
mm,
mom was more like, let's just go to work and I'm going to see my clients. And she had more of that. So it's funny because I kind of attracted that into my relationship now with George. The idea of having the opposite, like when I always talk about this, like if I had a guy who's like super into his like work all the time, never had time for me, or I had to like make sacrifices in my life for him to like have his career and it wasn't really any focus on mine, I don't know if I could do that. So maybe it's like what you've seen in life. So, and for example, like my mom really never asked for help. My dad, no, I don't know if he asked for help. My dad probably had a little more of that feminine energy, so he was open to it. Like my mom took care of some things. I don't know. I really never seen my mom ask for help. She's
yeah.
very capable, bless her. Scorpio, man, such Scorpio, like so capable, such a powerhouse. My mom is a powerhouse.
Mm.
Like everybody that knows my mom, like she is just Dina can do it. What do you need?
Mm,
Dina knows how to do it. She thrives on it. She loves to be needed, which is a Scorpio thing, which can be
mm,
not so good over time because then they feel resentful if they don't feel appreciated. But it's funny because like I think you see the asking for help or the not asking for help, like the teamwork. George has seen the teamwork in his parents, and that's the difference between like he looks at me like, well, what are you adding to the equation? Because both his parents totally like balanced and like were equals in a lot of the marriage. It's different. I don't know. I think that has something to do with the masculine and feminine. I think it really does go back down to that. And it's weird. My mom was so self-sufficient and such a driver and like the boss, I would say, that teaching me and my sister since we were young, if a man can't help you or do for you, he's not for you. If he like literally, she would literally like say like a man should only know you from the waist down. Like she's like, honestly, like that's about like she was very, and not like not that she didn't want us to have like love, but she was just like life is already tough. You need someone to help support you in life, period. Somebody who's going to add, somebody who's going to be there. And I'm like looking at my dad who I'm like, Ma, you know who you married, right? Like my dad is the best person. He'll help you. He'll be there for you. Like never liked it. He never cared about money. He never was Mr. Corporate. He never had any of. He was never like highly ambitious, but he cared a lot about things he cared about. Maybe my mom had to balance that masculine, feminine within herself. Otherwise, it's maybe why she looks at things a certain way, you know, and
yeah.
made her really strong and successful. But it also, I think, I don't know. Maybe I should really work on this for myself because you know how they say like you learn to your parents, and so maybe I
Yeah.
need to like work on this. Like us as like more enlightened children, even though like our parents are immigrant, we're working through so much ancestral stuff. I don't know about you, but maybe John, just like John was like, can you ask me for help? Like he was like kind of coaching you. George has kind of been that way to me. And sometimes I
Mm.
don't like it. I really am like uncomfortable.
It's
But
challenging. Yeah.
I'm like, wait, but I leave the next day I wake up and I'm like, that was profound. Like what you were trying to do without me. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
it's tough, man. It's tough. And how many things do we want to change? And how many things we don't want to change? Like sometimes I'm like, I don't want to change. Like I love being catered to. So messed up. So messed up.
I
I have
know.
all other issues, you
I
know what I
know.
mean?
And that's how I was for the longest time. I was like, I didn't see how my behavior of not asking for help was like actually holding me back. Because I was just like, well, what do you mean? Like, I can do it. I am doing it. I will do it. And he was like, yeah, except you're burnt out. You're miserable. You're not taking care of yourself. And now we have to deal with this cranky mom and wife. Like, nobody wants you cranky. And I'm like, oh, yeah, huh, I am pretty cranky. And then it was like, oh, well, how do I expect, even like doing this, like having to ask and being like, hey, what's your day like? Do you have anything you need to prioritize? I would like to get this done. Can you take over watching the baby for a bit? And he's like, yeah, no, that's cool. And then when you're done, I'll do whatever I need to do. And like, even just that, like the whole parenting thing, where that's a whole new, I don't
Avenue of
know.
like being
Yeah,
supported a different way because I mean your previous marriage like was a different like masculine feminine dynamic. I feel like probably like there was a
totally.
different
Yeah, totally.
expectation there. And sometimes I think about that because I'm like, Tia, like I live into the feminine I think pretty well, and there's moments where I go into the masculine. I think George gets kind of like confused because I can kind of flip really easily where I just get like, no dude, I'm gonna get this done, you know.
Mm,
I don't know though if I prefer to be in the masculine. I really do prefer to be in the feminine.
mm,
Sometimes being with George, sometimes it kind of forces me to go into the masculine moments because I get assertive and aggressive and I'm like very forthright. And that's like not really where I like to be. But I think that part of me is really good in the work that I do because then I can kind of create. And then there's moments where like I feel like George is really masculine when he comes to his work. And then with me, like he has moments like where he's like more like, okay, we're gonna go do this and stuff. But me and George, I think, are both easygoing old souls. And then when we're together, we're like constantly teaching each other things. And I think that is where it's funny. I don't know. You asked me for help as a parent. I don't know what I would look like as a parent because I don't
mm.
know where my dynamic would hit at that point. I really am very interested to see if we do have kids, like if I am I going to be the more controlling one, or if he's going to be the more like I don't really know.
Well,
I
it's
don't
kind
want
of funny. And
I want
like, there's nothing that can prepare you, honestly. Like, having children and the way that they change your life, like, it's not. I think the reason you can't put it into words is because it's literally different for every woman, every father, every mother is different with each child. The things that come up and the things that you heal. You know what I mean? Like each child's going to have their own relationship with you and something new that they bring to the table. So it's like, my kids have no problem asking me for help. They are not inheriting the same issues that I have. That's for damn sure.
well, that's
Mom,
really
can you
good, but
do
it's also
this? Mom, can you do that? And I'm just like, no. And they're like, What do you mean? I mean what I
Honestly,
said. I
I get
mean,
them.
no.
But that's how I feel. I'm like, why did you say no to me?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it's funny. My godfather shared this story the other night, and he's like, when you were little, he's like, we would go into the stores, and you would point at everything you wanted. You'd be like, I want this for school. I want that for school. I want this for school. He's like, by the end of the shopping trip, we would buy nothing, and you were totally happy. You just wanted to tell me what you wanted. And it was just so funny because that's how I am now. It's like, I don't know even if I expect anybody to deliver, but I just want you to know that's what I want.
There you go.
Like,
There you go.
I'll make it I think I'll be able to make it happen, but it's like that childish feeling that I still kind of go to where it's like, I don't know. And I have like my fifth house is in Leo, my south node's in Leo. I have some of that where like, I just, especially in like love, the fifth house of love, give me what I need
Mm.
and give me what I want. I want it to be fun and light. I think like it's funny with your kids being like, oh my God, no, I still feel that way. And as an adult, I'm like,
Well,
what?
that's why I started saying no more because I was like, well, I'm tired. And they're
No,
getting
but you should.
old. They're 11
Yeah.
and 12. I'm like, dude, put your laundry away. Anyways, that's a whole other issue.
That's okay, but at least you're learning, like, you have boundaries and they're learning. Like, it's kind of good that you're making them that way because I think now it's been a learning curve for me. I assume that everyone's just going to do for me. It's a
Mm,
thing I'm out learning, actually,
mm.
which is really hard.
So, the moral of the story is whether you can ask for help or whether you can't ask for help, they're both equally challenging, and that's okay.
100%
Well, that's the
realm. I
whole
think
like being okay with where you're at too. Just
true.
like acknowledging it and just being like, okay, this is where I'm at. Cool. Like you're saying, do I like it? Do I even want to change? Because that's a whole other thing, like you don't need to. It may be healthy for you to be able to delegate everything and to be able to ask people for help. And
Well, it probably is on some, and I think I need to do it more in certain areas. I think where
mm,
this is the thing, because I feel like I'm so capable. Like I think some people, when they're outward facing lives, are so capable, but then when they're home or they bring it to the people closest to them, then they expect that energy to be fulfilled. Where it's like, no, like maybe something else is unbalanced where you're not asking for help, you're not getting the assistance you need, you expect other things in your life to kind of be supported and helped in that way. That's a whole other topic, but I think that
yeah,
that's exactly,
yeah.
it's like balancing what you need to ask and when it's like really, how do you balance all of it?
Right. And I think too, this is where like knowing your human design can come into play and really be helpful
Mm.
too. Because for me, a generator, my not self theme is frustration. So when I'm feeling frustrated, that's a good sign for me to be like, hey, wait, what can I shift? What needs to work itself out in order for me to not feel frustrated anymore? And for you, it's the bitterness.
I don't know. Sometimes the bitterness to me it turns into just like pissed, but then it also just turns into like I'm just gonna do this myself. Then it kind of goes straight into like it kind of fuels my own self sufficiency. Don't talk to me. I got this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if the not self is supposed to like help you understand, where you're really being triggered and what is really kind of need to work out versus it just being kind of just a theme or some like feeling or emotion. I really feel like why do I feel bitter about this?
Yeah, it's
Like
like a
that
clue.
person say anything wrong to me. Does it mean I'm not going to be their friend? No. What is like really shaking inside of me? Like I'm constantly doing this work. Like, give me a break. And it's funny, like lately, I'm just like, George, I just want to party. I just want to get out of talking about spirituality. And like, I love it so much. It's what I do every day. But I'm just like, dude, I just
You
want to
need to
drink.
fill up your cup. Yeah, that's just showing you that you need a reset, a recharge. That's healthy. Go plan your vacation. Are you going to plan your vacation? Should we take a couple minutes to talk about this?
At one point, George was like, why don't you plan the vacation? Like, you wait for everything from me. And I'm like, I know. He really is shifting me out of my comfort zone, Fiona. And I don't know if I like it because I'm like, he's right. Like, I see his point, Like,
See,
if my
I'm the opposite. Like, I love to vacation, and John loves to vacation too. It's my generator. If I'm like, somebody says, like, oh, Mexico, and I'm like, oh, let me look up flights. And if it's cheap, I'm just like, oh, I just book it. And I'm like, so.
okay, Fiona, I am like that. But being in a relationship has been such a challenge for me because you're thinking about the other person. Oh, is he working? Like, I hate it. I don't even know why people get married. I'm like, because now I gotta like not be selfish. And I'm like, I like being selfish. Like, I know that sounds messed up. It's
Yeah.
Tia's world. That's how I feel. Like, it's so messed up. And I don't know if it's because I have a personal life in human design or if I just am what I am. And I love doing my favorite thing. And so it's been kind of a learning curve because it's like, it's not because I'm actually selfish. Like, I care a lot about people. That's why I wait and see, babe, can you make the dates? Or like, what are you thinking? But the problem is, Fiona, up until this point, I've been giving him the role of doing it. And then he's like turned to me, he's like, don't you think I would like to go on vacation? Maybe you should think, maybe I should plan it for George. He was right. But I was just like, why can't you do everything? And it's something I'm really trying to understand.
You want to turn off before you even get there, and you don't even want to think about the planning.
Oh, I never plan a vacation, Fiona.
Ever?
Ever.
I would be
Never. I
too
don't plan. Are you
afraid
kidding?
because
I
I would
look at
be
the
like, well,
dates.
I see, there's my controlling. I'd be like, well, if I don't plan it, who's going to plan it, right? Like, if I'm not in control of this, how am I going to get on vacation?
You're hilarious. I don't. You know what I do? I used to be like, friends would invite me. They'd be like, "Hey T, do you want to go to Hawaii? Sure, book it. I don't care what we're
Oh,
doing. I
wow.
don't care where we're going. I don't care. I literally don't give a shit. Take
No,
me."
usually I'm just like, I have a couple friends who also like to vacation like I do. So, we'll just throw a text like, hey, so there's this like a chance, like, what do you think about this? And the other person's like, yep, book the Airbnb. I'm like, perfect, got the flights. And like, we just make it happen. And then we like tell our husbands and they're like, oh yeah, cool. We're going to go on there.
But I think
Mm.
for me, it's like, I think I need to like understand that a partnership is a partnership. It's not just somebody doing everything for you. And I think that's where my learning curve is, where I
Mhm.
feel like, because on the other hand, even if George was like, "Okay, we're going to go here," and if he was like ultra controlling and like wanted to control everything, I'd still not be okay with it.
All right, well, I think this is a good place to leave off. If you guys loved the video, which I hope you did, make sure to leave us a comment and let us know. Do you have trouble asking for help, or are you more like Tia and it comes easily? We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.